Hey everyone, and thank you for joining me again for another Women's Spotlight. We are doing these Women's Spotlights monthly so that you out there can hear about all the amazing things that women are getting up to, pushing past boundaries, living the life of their dreams. And hey, we can all do it if we just step into what's possible. So today is no different. I've got with me Moira Ni Ghallachoir, all the way from Ireland. And I hope I said that right. But if not, she's going to say it again with her beautiful, gorgeous accent. So, Moira, thank you so much for coming today and welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tara. It's my pleasure. And you made a beautiful job of saying my name. It's not easy. It's always a conversation starter for people.
Yes, I love it. And you know what? I also love the fact that you've got that map behind you because travel and exploration is so important to you. And it's also equally important to me. So it's nice to talk to someone on the other side of the globe.
Yeah, I spotted the globe in your background as well. And is that a map with Tara Marshall on it over, is it Australia?
No, that's just like a color coded logo, but it looks
Oh,
kind of like a
okay.
map.
It
Yeah,
looks a little bit like
exactly.
Australia.
Yeah, it looks kind of like that. Well, thanks for joining us today. You've got travel and shoes in your background, so you are automatically up on the scale of likability to me. But it wasn't always that you were a globetrotter. You actually started making 30K a year as a youth worker, and now you're talking all over the globe. You've got 3 books, you do workshops in Paris and New York. Sounds super exciting. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't always that way. You know, Tara, I think I had a moment or a period in my life where things just started to not make sense around about my 36th birthday. And I think, I had the 7 year itch from being in the same job. And that was the job I studied for. I really wanted to work in social care, community, helping people. And around about my 36th birthday, I hit a wall. Nothing made sense. And if you had been looking at my social media at the time, you would have said, Moira's got it going on. I was traveling. I was like, going to fashion shows, city breaks. Like, it was awesome. But inside, I was like, my soul was being drained. Like, nothing made sense. So I did what every girl would do. I took myself off to Paris for the weekend with my journal to make some decisions. And I remember I was sitting in a cafe in Montmartre and I had my journal, my coffee, and my pen, and my phone rang. And any other day, my parents were calling me, no big deal. But this day, as I was writing the lists of everything that I wanted, where did I want to go next? What did I want to do? And I was really confused. But there was something about the way the word home came up on the screen on my phone that day that I had this sense of peace wash over me. And I was like, I want to go home. What? This makes no sense whatsoever.
Like,
I
I
literally
live
got
in
my
Paris. Why do I
yeah.
want to go home?
I was like, oh, will I live in Paris? Will I go to Japan? What about Australia? I was adventurous, but nothing was just lighting the fire, And it made no sense because I left home when I was 18. Small town, rural Ireland, nothing. I always thought there's nothing here for me. And all of a sudden, it just felt like everything was there for me. And I very quickly packed in my job, filled up a car, drove back home to Ireland. My friends thought I was crazy. My parents thought I was crazy because I was leaving a really good job. In their eyes, it was a great job. For me, I was just like, oh, I'm so done with that. And I landed back home and I realized that my grandmother, she had left her cottage to me. So there was this old cottage that I could start working on to do it up. So I very quickly got that together, moved into it. And yeah, then I had to think like, what am I going to do? Like I didn't really think this through. So that was really the start. And I think that it's so important to just listen to that whisper when you get it. I think many, I'm going to say women, I don't know, I don't have these conversations with men all too much, but I think that women have these like whispers where their soul or their heart is telling them to, think about something and it might not make sense. And many of them ignore it. And maybe 10 years later, they come back to that same decision. But I'm so glad that I actually listened and I came back. Because yes, I started a business and I'll tell you all about that. But the most important thing for me in that moment was there's no way I would have known that my mom only had 5 years to live at that point.
Mhm.
And So I moved home and we ended up being best friends again, rekindling our relationship. We traveled together, like we literally lived in each other's pockets. So I had those 5 years between the time I moved home and the time that she passed over. So I'll be forever grateful for that, regardless of the success and the lifestyle and all the things that happened in between.
What a beautiful story. And, that 5 years with mom is priceless, right? Like that time with our loved ones. And you also said you never would have known or could have known. And so thankfully that whisper brought you home and gave you that opportunity. Let's talk a little bit more about that whisper, because sometimes, women, as women, even men as well, we have that inner intelligence, we have that intuition, and then we have like the ego voice that sometimes pops up. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a difficult time understanding which one to listen to. So for me, I ground and I say, is it coming from my heart space? Because my heart space has my inner wisdom. Where did your whisper come from? Or do you even know?
I created space to hear something, living in the rat race and the city, the mundane day in, day out. And I was unhappy there. I was only tuned in to what I didn't want. That was the problem.
Oh, that's such a huge delineation. So many people focus on what they don't want, and that attracts more of it. So
Yes.
You're in this rat race. How long were you there?
I was there about 7 years, and it was the best times of my life. I won't lie, I was a bit of a party girl. Like I just loved going out, socializing, to go to parties and clubs and shows and all that. But after a while, I just, it was just draining, because it was just like, okay, I'm not getting anything out of this. I kind of got it all out of my system, let's say. But yeah, it was definitely taking myself out of that situation and going into the freshness of something new, something different, something that was really unfamiliar. And it just allowed me the space to just sit, think, listen, and see what would come. Like I had no idea that was coming, but we never do, right?
You never do. And you heard that whisper to go home, and then you went home and you worked on that cottage. And so spending time with mom was fantastic, but how else did this new way of life unfold for you once you were home?
Yeah, so when I moved back, it was like I had never seen this corner of Ireland. For your listeners, Donegal is probably one of the most authentic places in Ireland. It's like time stood still here. It's not like Cork or Kerry or Dublin, where it's all built up and it's all touristy. It's not like that at all. It's authentic, it's real, it's raw. The landscape is rugged, it's beautiful, and there's mountains and beaches and stories and culture and music. And it was just everything. But it was also everything that I wanted to get away from when I was 18, because I was just like, I hate this place. I had a whole other perspective, and all I could see was beauty and possibility and opportunity. But it seemed like all the conversations I was having with people were like businesses were closing, people were leaving, nobody liked the place, we didn't have any tourists, it was all like negative. And I was like driving around going, oh my gosh, this place is amazing, So I took a real interest in why people felt that way and what would make it better and what they thought would work. And the more I dug in, the more I found about all of these amazing resources that were here. It was, for me, it was beyond 5-star, because you couldn't actually find this. So I was like, I'm gonna just like organize a weekend adventure for people and see if they like what I come up with. So very, very simple thing. I put together this weekend of adventure and culture in the secret parts of Donegal. And like about 15 people came and they loved it. They were like, oh my God, this is amazing. So then I was like, okay, I've got a product. So I just got on the phone, started sharing it with all my network, and started trying to tap into social media. And I'll get into that in a second. Like I didn't have those skills, but I could speak. And I had a lot of passion and I had a lot of enthusiasm. So I just had conversations with people. And before you knew it, I was getting bookings from student groups, corporate groups. At one point, Tara, there was a helicopter arriving on the local football field with a corporate group that were flying in from London. It was on the news. A TV documentary was done about it. It was in the Irish Times. I got voted one of the best experiences in Ireland. And it was amazing. And I was just doing something that I felt, this is going to make a difference here.
Yes.
And I never started that business with, oh, this is the business that I want to start. This is it. I just sort of went with the flow to see what I could do to help. And within 2 years, over 1,000 people who would never have visited here got to come and experience this place. But not only that, it opened the eyes of the local people to what we had and what was possible. And I also created like a network of business owners, local service providers working together. And Tara, this is going to sound really funny, but like there was days where I'd be organizing tours and I'm running around fields with a mobile phone trying to call a bus to collect us on the corner where the rock meets the road. And I mean, there was a logistical
amazing.
it was a logistical and weather nightmare, but it always worked out because it was just that personal communication between people just wanting to create a great experience for people. There was no fancy stuff involved. It was just real, raw and fun. And yeah, I did that for about 2 years. And then I was like, okay, this can't be the thing, because, I could have went from being heels and parties to like hiking boots and mountains overnight. And I wasn't necessarily that way inclined. I just sort of like, okay, I'll do it. I'll climb this and I'll do this, whatever. Yeah. And I realized that, there has to be another part to this. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started to really tune into what were people coming and asking me for? What was it that they specifically needed my help for? And it was always, how did you get those customers? How did you find that group? How are you managing to get this PR? All this. So I kind of thought, you know what? Let me flip the switch here. Instead of me out there running around doing everything, why don't I show these people how to do it for themselves?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's, just before we go into that, there's a few things I really want to touch on. So wow, you just went with it and you turned the community around. So I think it's great because you brought attention to your home, but it's also wonderful because you reframe the way people thought about it. It sounds like they took more pride after you put this effort in. So that sounds like a real big impact to me. But you also said something earlier about attracting and thinking and focusing on all the things you didn't want. And then you moved here and you kind of flipped everything around. That's a huge adjustment. That's a big reframe. So how did you go from, I don't want this, to here's what I'm going to create. I'm going to create something out of nothing. I'm going to have thousands of people come through my community. I'm going to have a helicopter come in and stop on a football field with corporate people who are going to get out in their hiking boots and love where I live. How did you transform that thinking process?
Yeah, there's something about being in a space where you're just so inspired by. There's something about the energy in Donegal, Tara. I've had like friends come and just walk around with me and feel like just start crying because they can just feel something really rich and old and, creative in the energy. And because we have like this changeable weather, like I could look out my window here now and it's bright and sunny, but I could go into the kitchen and it's like a grim day. So there's this constant change,
Wow.
So, and I think that really sparks creativity. So I felt like wildly inspired by the place, by the people, and I was just like on fire with ideas. Like, I think everybody has this when they start a business. They can't sleep at night because there's so many ideas popping in their mind because you feel deeply connected to something.
Yes. And there's so, it's not to say that people have to leave what they've been doing for 10 or 15 years and go out there and do something else. It's not to say you have to transfer yourself around the world. I feel when I hear what you're saying, that the transformation or the metamorphosis comes from the space in between, from creating a space where that creative energy can flow and changing it up, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you do that if you're at home and you're in a job that you love for 15 years? You can still inspire and bring change in that role, right? You don't have to go across the world. But for those of you who want to, just as a teachable moment, I think what I'm hearing from you is you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to listen to that inner voice and follow through. And then don't really know the how, you just know the what. And the what is that where the creativity really comes in. So thank you for those learning moments. And then you're in this and you're loving it and you're saying, well, now is time for me to teach others to do the same. And I guess that's the next transformation in your career or your livelihood. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's when things really started to get interesting. I started working one-on-one with businesses, showing them how to get more customers. So I was really focused on helping them with sales. But one thing, I think is really important to add to this conversation and, for your listeners is that, I had multiple careers. I had been in marketing, I had been in sales, I'd been in youth work, I'd worked in bars, I'd worked in community centers, nursing homes, like everything to do with people. So I had a really solid, foundation of a skill set, and I was confident enough to pick things up on the go. But you said the key thing, and that was I just took action, and I didn't have the next thing figured out, but I always knew who to ask. And I would say yes, the what and the who. I think the what and the who got me to where I needed to go, relying on the people around me for help and asking for help when I needed it.
And as women, I think sometimes we're so close to receiving. I don't know if you found that in your endeavors, but I found as women, we've become less and less open to receiving, and we are supposed to receive. That's our natural gift, is to be open to receiving. So you took the feedback from around you and you asked for help and you received that help, and that opened the door for you to do things that you didn't even know anything about, it sounds like, and it just sort of morphed and was created. The other thing I heard from you is sales, the power of sales. I was having a great meeting last week with some C-levels, and I remember they said, the one question they always get asked is, how did you get to a CEO level? And what's the one thing I can do? And hands down, they all said sales. And it seems like many people are afraid of sales, but sales is in every walk of your life. And it sounds like you're out there teaching people now how to sell their business, sell their vision, sell the story. Tell me more about what you think about sales and the importance of it in what you do in your work today.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see sales is simply inspiring people to do what they already want to do. And that is all it really is. I mean, we tend to make sales all about us and making it personal and all those things, but it absolutely isn't. And the key to sales, I think, is, just in that ability to ask, number one, what do you want? Why do you want it? Why is it important? And do you want to make it happen? It's just asking some basic, simple questions. And instead of bringing any other type of intensity or anything to the conversation, bring curiosity. Just bring curiosity.
I'm so happy you said that. Curiosity is the number one thing for me too. It's like, bring the curiosity to the table, to the conversation, and then also make sure it's quid pro quo, right? Make sure that once you know what your client wants, you show them a foundation or a pathway to get there.
Totally. And I think this trips people up all the time, but it can be the most natural thing. Quick story, I was in New York in 2018, Tara, and I was speaking at an event with Les Brown. I'm sure you and everybody here knows Les Brown. Yeah. I was so excited about this opportunity. This was me, girl from Donegal, in New York, in Manhattan, to speak on stage with this guy, with this amazing man. And I was walking around the venue and I kept thinking, oh my God, there's something's missing. That feeling like something, I don't know what it was. And then all of a sudden I looked down at my feet and I went, oh my God, my shoes. I've forgotten my shoes. So I was ready about an hour away from getting getting on stage. And I was just like, oh man. So I ran outside, I called an Uber, and I'm standing on the curb outside, and it was sweltering heat, July, Manhattan. My makeup is starting to run because I was so hot. And I'm looking around at all these beautiful cars pulling up outside the Sheraton Hotel. And then I saw this really beat out Honda pulling up, and I'm just like, that can't be my car. And then I looked at my phone, I looked back, and oh my God, it is. It's like, are you serious? Anyway, I didn't have time to say anything about it. So I got in, and to be fair, the guy was really friendly. We chatted away, and I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. So we get to the destination, and I go to get out of the car. And I said, thank you so much, bye. And he goes, oh, excuse me, ma'am. I was like, yeah. He goes, could you give me a 5-star rating? I was like, what? He goes, can you give me a 5-star rating? And I was like, why? And he goes, well, did I not take you where you wanted to go? I was like, yeah. He goes, I want to boost my score. So I get out of the car, and I gave the guy a 5-star rating. Like, why did I do that? He asked for it. And not only that, he asked for it in a way that he expected me to say yes. And he was right. He did take me where I wanted to go.
And he was pleasant. It was just
he was nice. But it wasn't a 5-star car. So I want your audience to really hear it. You don't have to be 5 stars at anything you do, but you can become 5-star at just asking for what you want.
That's so powerful, because so many times we get paralyzed by the idea of perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. We hear it all the time. We hear Mel Robbins say it. We hear it all the time, where it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be done. You said earlier, you took action. There's a difference between thinking and pondering and trying to perfect and just going out and taking massive action, because the worst that will happen when you take massive action is that you'll learn a lesson and you'll get better. And that by embarking on the journey of doing, certainly it always makes us better. We're learning, we're growing. And I just know so many people that are paralyzed by perfection. And it's also because we push perfection at women in general, right? We have such unrealistic expectations of them. So thank you for saying that. So you go out and you've built this. Now tell me, on that stage that day, what was your most memorable moment? Once you got your shoes and you got your makeup fixed and you got on the stage with Les Brown, what do you remember most about that day when you delivered your speech to the audience?
I remember how self-conscious I felt. I remember having feelings of, am I good enough to be on this stage? I remember thinking, that girl in the front seat looks like she's really bored. I remember all of that. But more than anything, I kept reminding myself, I'm here to do a job. Do the best job you can, Moira. Just do the best job you can right now. And it was a funny thing that happened during that. It was after lunch, which for your listeners and viewers, the worst time.
The worst time. People are tired and full, and they're
tired. And I'm guilty of it. You know, I see this all the time. And one of my clients at the time, she was actually in the audience, and she could see that. And then I was in the middle of saying something about one of my clients, and she actually stood up and she was just like, actually, I want to add to that, Moira. And she just kind of like got the room kind of like that. And she goes, last year, I was barely making 500 a month. Now I'm making 10,000. And everything she's just said is everything I just did. And the whole room just sort of went, yay, like this. So it really like lit up the place. But, you know, I think more than anything, you've just got to always have faith, you know, that the universe has your back, that you've got what it takes. And the thing with speaking, Tara, that always, you know, people put off asking for the opportunity, getting on the stage. And here's what I know about women, and especially women that are driven in their business and want to help people. If you have an opportunity to speak, you will put all the hours that are necessary into getting yourself ready, because the date is in the calendar and the event is imminent.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's like, if you don't have it in there, you continue to plan it. But once it's in there, you start practicing and you start getting yourself ready. So I heard from you that once you're ready, the universe aligns and conspires to make it happen. And, you know, sometimes people hear that and they're like, woohoo, yeah, laws of attraction. What are you talking about? But the one thing with the law of attraction that I think of is, you've got to believe it, and you've got to focus on what you want, not what you don't want, like you said earlier. The second thing you have to do is put it out there as if it already exists. But the third thing you have to do is take massive action. There is no manifesting without action. You've just got to have faith that you've got to feel the fear and do it anyways. You've got to be on that stage saying that person is thinking, I have no idea what I'm talking about, and do it anyways. You've got to be in that boardroom and say, my nails are too long, my hair is too long. They're thinking I look like this, but I'm going to step up and do it anyways, right? So for those women out there who are paralyzed by the fear of judgment, of rejection, of unworthiness, how do you think the best way to overcome that is?
I mean, this is what I always say to my clients: put yourself in the position to even experience it, so then you know what you're dealing with. Make it real in some way. Actually go out and do it. And always they say, like, I do this like with my clients all the time, like, you know, raise your prices, or, you know, just ask for the gig, and then they do it. And I'm like, did anything bad happen? They're like, no. What did you learn? They're like, I've been just holding myself back. Exactly. So actually just do it, and even just doing something once, it doesn't have to be massive, but actually take action to know what is it that you're dealing with, because otherwise it's just a fantasy. It's an unsuccessful fantasy. That's what it is. So why not have a success fantasy?
Yes. And so is that how you went from 30K to a multi six-figure business? Like, did you did the work, you put it in, you asked the questions, you started implementing the learnings, you decided to teach others, you've spoken on several stages. Tell us about that. Like, how has your life changed now that you are making six figures and helping women make six figures as well?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing, like the whole speaking thing, I never set out to be a speaker. I just knew that I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to figure out every tactic and strategy in the book to get a client, and it was exhausting me. And I saw that a local organization were having a conference for business, which was very unusual here. And I was just like, I need to be one of those speakers, for not because I wanted clients, it was just like, I want my message in that room, you know? And so I asked for the speaking engagement, and they said yes. And then I had a panic attack on what the hell am I going to speak about? So long story short, got up on stage that day. After, I didn't do a great job. I did okay, you know, it was like one of my first times. But straight away, two people came up and asked about hiring me. And another woman who has become a lifelong friend invited me to speak at an event that she hosted that was going to have 200 people at it. And I remember getting into the car with my mom that day after the event and saying, Mom, I've been killing myself trying to create something that just happened in less than an hour. What have I been doing? I'm just going to do that again and again and again. And that's what I did. I ended up doing a speaking tour of Ireland. And from doing that, I was averaging on getting about 2 or 3 clients every time I spoke. There's 26 counties in Ireland. I managed to speak in 19 of them, which literally catapulted my business into the multiple six figures less than 2 years later. I literally got on a mission. That's what I did. And I was just like, I'm not going to stop until I speak in every room in this country.
Oh, I love it. Mission, that's such a good word, because when we think about it, you know how many women work with me and they're trying to find their purpose. What's my life purpose, Tara? Why am I here? And I always say, start with your mission. What do you think your mission is? What lights you up? What sets you on fire? So when you look at your mission and your purpose, do you feel you're living that? Do you feel you're living on purpose right now? You're doing what you came here to do, as some people may say?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think that this is something that deepens the more that you get into it, that there's many facets to your purpose. You know, I'm very, very dedicated to helping women be recognized for who they truly are. On a personal level, I really want to end the cycle of financial survival, of poverty, and for the generations that come after me. Because I mean, I come from working class families. Like my mom grew up, she didn't even have shoes, she got an orange for Christmas. You know, there is no millionaire businesswoman type person in, like, it isn't there. And I want to be the first millionaire businesswoman in our family. And I want to set the tone for the future generations of the women that come after me. And it always makes me think that, I'm sure everybody knows that quote, the Maya Angelou quote, where I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And that sounds amazing. And I didn't really get it, and then it's only been in the last years, I'm like, that's what she means. That's what she means, because the change you make will change for thousands and thousands.
Be the light you want to see in the world, right? Now, it's interesting because as you move from poverty to wealth, as you reframe how you think about wealth, for me, for example, I remember hearing not only from clients, but from people in my circle, how much lack there was. So for me, I'm on a mission to shift mindsets from scarcity to abundance and activate abundance, because for me, money is just another form of energy, and energy is constantly flowing. So if we look at it that way, when you look at the transformation, the one thing that I find people struggle with is how to show up once they're making six figures. It's almost like they're afraid to make the money because money is seen as greedy. Wealth is seen as something that you had to step on others. And what you just said is there's a power, because I stand as one and I represent 10,000. I am percolating out my light to help others elevate. That's a very different message than wealth is greedy. So how did you go through that, dealing with people in your circle that maybe weren't ready to see your elevation or support your elevation?
That is such a brilliant question and an inquiry. And I have so much that I want to share about this. But I do remember one moment, and my success was very fast. And I say very fast for 6 years ago, not very fast in the virtual world, because things are at warp speed right now. But at that time, it was considered fast. And I remember I used to get invited on the local radio show to talk about topics and things. And one day I was invited, and the host, he said something like, Moira, I read on your social media that you used to make 30,000 a year, and now you're making 30,000 a month. Is that true? 30,000 a month? Are you really making that much money? And I remember going, well, yes, I'm running a business, a successful business in, marketing. And I was really like, what's going on here? He absolutely shamed me, Tara. Absolutely. That is what I can almost reconnect with the feeling that I had that day. When I came back to my office to work, I wanted to get under my desk and hide. And it brought up everything, because I could actually feel myself getting a little bit emotional about that, but I was so in motion. I was so go, 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 that I almost didn't even stop to think. And I want to make, when you're growing your business, it takes a lot of investment. So I don't want anybody thinking that I was just piling up all these 30,000 a month. No, money was coming in and money was flying out. There was marketing, there was coaching, there was traveling, there was, it was fast paced. That's what scaling looks like. You're paying for a team and all those things. But the shame that I felt that day, that I didn't even know it was there. And for most of us, we don't know the level of shame that we hold until we allow ourselves to experience what it feels like to handle that amount of money and the energy that comes with that. And in many ways, I'm grateful to him, because he allowed me to look at that and to clear it for myself and say that, Moira, that's not real. That's part of, that's not mine. It was ancestral, it was genetic, it was historical, it was on all the levels, But and identity is a big thing, because I was faced with a situation where, who am I now making, having a multiple six-figure business, and who am I now without my mother? So there was two major identity crises that I went through. And to be honest, I stopped growing. I just stayed at sort of multiple six figures a year, and I was able to coast like that. And that was fine. But I had to just start getting to know myself in this new space, because then it's, you don't want to have scaling is it requires a lot of fast work, heavy work, you've got to go, go, go. And I was like, okay, I don't want that. I just need to breathe. I need to breathe, get to know who I am,
Absolutely.
focus on what actually I enjoy about what I'm doing. And that's what I feel I've been doing for the last few years. And now I'm ready to go for it again.
And that's so beautiful because it's okay to move fast and it's okay to stop, breathe, stand in the in between, and stand in the in between for as long as you need to, because there's no one that you need to compete with or catch up to like your own inner self and what you're capable of. And thank you for sharing that. I know it can be so hard to lose a loved one. And I know you lost your mom 5 years ago. So, you know, my heart is with you. They never really leave us, but I know it leaves a big empty spot sometimes. So you've got to reframe. And when you looked at what he said and that shame you're carrying, many of us have shame. And, you know, Brene Brown talks about how low energy vibration shame is all the time, right? And the opposite of shame is this idea of unconditional love. And we can give unconditional love. I find, especially as coaches and speakers, we give it so much more freely to others than ourselves. It sounds to me like you took some time to incubate and learn how to self-love to eliminate some of the shame. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it wasn't all about the money. And then it also gave me space to go, well, why am I building this business? Because a big part of my why was because I wanted my mom to be proud of me and I wanted to create a certain lifestyle for me and my mom, because I always sort of felt that I underachieved for, you know, perhaps what people expected of me. Like my first job out of college was door-to-door sales.
Love it. That taught you foundations. Mine was serving like
it did. We know that, but I couldn't even tell my parents. I just did all this studying now, knocking on doors.
yes, I know. And you only get paid for what you sell, and you're walking around trying to do it carrying a bag. Absolutely. I remember those days. But that, you know, interestingly enough, those first jobs probably taught you a lot of that tenacity you needed today, right? So those jobs taught you, that gentleman bringing shame to you taught you, the loss of your mom taught you. And it's so hard when we're down there and we're feeling those emotions, but they serve us. If we can just like sit in the space and feel our way through it, they serve us. They create this balance in our life, right? And sounds so funny, but if there's sunshine, there's rain, right? If there's happiness, there's sadness. It's like the two sides of the coin. There's life and there's death. And so as you're building through, where are you now and how do you help people go through those moments and sort of tap into their destiny? What do you do now? Tell us about this 5-day program and how that helps us get on track with our destiny and purpose.
Yeah, I mean, number one, it's really about finding that mission that you feel like deeply connected to. And then how do you then turn that into a marketing message that the world needs to hear and that is tangible and is going to solve a problem for people? So I do that. And then I show them then how to build a top tier income from that, which then on the path to doing that, they become sought after authorities in their field because their messages are everywhere. And because they're then creating the income, they can then start living a globe-trotting, freedom-based lifestyle from doing that. And I believe, like, my definition of destiny is with every action you take, you change your destiny, right? I don't think it's not fixed. So it's really, and being aware that it's like, it reminds me of, you know, like all the lines in our hands. It's like, you know, we start here and we go a little bit over here and we go a little bit over here and we experience all of it along the way, and just preparing people for what's going to come. And my big thing is about trying to help my clients avoid the sort of rabbit holes and the things that took me out of the game for a long time, so that they can be aware that this may happen, and when it does, we're going to work through it. So at least if they know it's going to come, they can be like, I was told this might happen, so then we can quickly deal with it. So I really want to collapse time for the clients that I have so that they can do it faster, and really be a force to be reckoned with in the marketplace.
I love it. And learn from your lessons so they don't necessarily have to spend as much time going through their own. You touched on something, and that is that our purpose and our mission is constantly unfolding. And as we grow, it continues to grow. And sometimes we need a pause, and sometimes we need to get into scaling mode. I like to always say I like to diversify my portfolio, right? So I'm a VP in a tech company, and then I write, and then I coach, and then I do things like this. And people always say, well, that's a lot to do, Tara. We all have the same amount of hours. I get it. But for me, that brings me fulfillment, because in the tech world, it's very process oriented and very rigid. And in my world, it's much more creative, and we have moments like this. So what do you say to those women out there who want to come work with you so they can bring more purpose to what they're doing today? And they're a little afraid because they're not ready to necessarily sell everything and move back to Ireland, but they want to, maybe take baby steps. Is that still the right type of client for you? Should they still work with you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, they should. If what I'm saying, if speaking and impacting people's lives and having, being more on a path towards your destiny, like what you're really created for, if that's something that piques your interest, absolutely come and hang out with me in my challenge. I host it every month, and it's really to help people gain clarity, to take action, and consider a destiny-driven business versus just a business that makes a few dollars, and to consider speaking as a way that they can make that happen fast. I have not seen or experienced anything that works as fast as speaking can. And not only that, it's not all about you standing on stage and helping people. It's who you become on a personal level from doing that you allow yourself to become this other person, this whole other level of authority and confidence, because it will happen inevitably if you go on that path. And just trust yourself to do a good job. And the thing I would say as well, it's all about the power of one. You don't need 100 million skills to do this. You need to have one talk, one offer, one story, and just change the audience every time. That's all. It's as simple as that. And if you can do that, you will hone your message. You will become more confident. You will reach more people, and people will want what you have to offer. Because most of the time, people connect with your energy. They connect with something about your story. I have people that connect with me just because of how I like shoes. They're like, oh, I just love your style. I really want to speak to you. Or I just love this. You don't have to tick every single box under the sun. And always remember, you're not for everyone. And not everyone is going to want you, but the small number of people that do will change your world. Absolutely, hands down.
Mm-hmm. I always say that as much as we speak, we give to others, we receive back equally as much. When I coach, I get so much back. I learn so much about myself and others. And I love how you said, you will learn how to use your voice, and you will be more confident, because that to me is really, for women, the biggest benefit of speaking is that we've been taught to only say certain things and to be polite and to just work through it, because the mouthy girl is the sassy girl, which is the unliked girl. I believe truly that when you learn to speak better on a stage, regardless of if you're ever going to do it, it will serve you in the boardroom, it will serve you in your relationship, it will serve you in your life. For me, the biggest thing is not to be silenced, and we have a voice to share. So thank you for helping women share their voice and learn how to channel their voice and to not keep quiet anymore.
You're
know
really
we're
speaking my language right now.
I want to talk to you all day. And I know we're coming up to time. And so, just before I want to mention that, your course is available. You've got books out, like jam with you. It's really fun. But if you had to go back and tell that wee little girl in Ireland before she left, maybe when you were 7 or 6, something that you think would pave the way for who you are today, but save you the way you've saved your clients time and energy, save you some maybe heartache, get you there a little faster, what would it be?
Well, the words for me growing up that I heard the most were shut up, stop talking, leave the classroom, and you've said enough now. And I would say that it got so bad by the time I was 10 or 11 that I actually thought I was cursed, because all I did want to do was talk, but I was always in trouble for it. And I remember one day this teacher came up to me. I was standing outside the classroom door because I was in trouble again for speaking. And he looked at me and he says, you know, Moira, you're never going to make anything of your life if all you want to do is talk. And I remember thinking at that time, like, oh my gosh, he's right. And what I would say to my little girl these days is, just because people are telling you to shut up, just because you think they don't want to hear what you've got to say, it doesn't mean that what you've got to say doesn't matter.
That's so powerful, Maura. I have goosebumps all over, which for me means universal truth, because I heard the exact same thing when I was growing up. And once you're taught to be quiet, it's very hard to find that voice again. So, so powerful. Thank you. This has been wonderful. And, just for all of you to recap, right? It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you were told. Those limiting beliefs come up from what others put on you and those lessons, but it's never too late to change them. It's never too late to hear your inner voice and just go with it. Go on a whim, go with that intuition. And I love how you talked about not focusing on what you don't want, focus on what you want. Go out there and create it, make it happen, take action. It doesn't have to be perfect. You've just got to take action. And once you take action, the rest will unfold if you're open to it. And always, always use your voice, because that is the most powerful way for you to share your truth. And we all need it out there. So is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close today?
Tara, I'd just like to say that this is one of the most powerful, enjoyable podcasts that I've been on, and I've been on like tons of podcasts. So thank you so much for the opportunity, the amazing questions, and yeah, I mean, there was so much great stuff in here for your listeners. But I would just say, just take one piece of this and let it serve you. Don't worry about taking all of it, because I'm talking from like 10 years experience in business. You might have listeners that are just starting, or just what is the one thing that you could take away from this? And I would just say focus on that, and then come back and find another piece of gold to work on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. It's been wonderful. And for all of you out there, you don't have to take everything, just one little piece and implement it. One little piece can lead to massive, massive change. So thank you again. We'll have you back real soon, and keep getting out there and helping people just share and share and share their voice. Everyone, we'll see you next month.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much.